Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being the show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Blacklist. Another great episode. This episode kind of took me by surprise in its approach, because basically, obviously, and it's something Reddington kind of talks about in this episode. Well, let me break everything down. Well, first of all, we have this week's Blacklister being known as the Endling. Her real name is Mira. Essentially, she basically will eradicate, like, she keeps things around specialties, like make it so that something is one of a kind, and she basically like leaves this one thing being that one of a kind. That way whoever has it or owns this said thing is like, oh, they'll make like major bucks because this is a one and unique thing, whether it's animals or whether it's like whatever. Like, it's just like the example is kind of like, oh, what if you could bring back if you kept the dodo bird alive and just one person owned it, and you basically there were 5 dodo birds and you wiped out the other 4 just to make that one rare. That's the whole situation with the Endling, and it's such a interesting blacklister. And then this blacklister starts still kidnapping people. At first it seems like, oh, it's this princess named Sonia, but then it's like, no, it's her quote unquote assistant Anna, when in actuality it's not actually her assistant. That's actually kind of her blood transfusion, because Anna is special because she has this special rare blood type that's just simply referred to as golden blood. Essentially, they are like the ultimate universal blood donor, because like rare people with rare blood, like the princess in this example, can't get blood just from anywhere, and like Anna having like super like rare blood, being the golden blood, is kind of universal for the rare blood people. So it just puts it at the top. Nevertheless, not only Anna, but 2 other people prior were kidnapped as well. And then there's a boy named Ethan who's kind of brought up in this whole equation. Basically, ultimately, we end up finding out that Mira is his mom. And basically everything she's done, all the jobs she's taken as the Endling, as well as just all these people with golden blood she's kidnapped, has all been for the purposes of saving her son's life, because her son got adopted. It was just a whole situation that she couldn't be with him because she had to fight essentially a battle, the position she was in, and she disappeared, and then she tracked down her son again, and obviously he's super young, so obviously he wouldn't remember her. And I don't know, it was just like, overall it's a very sad story. Ultimately ending the way it did. Wasn't expecting that, because I was like, Reddington's got something else planned for her, like in a sense of like, oh, he's got someone set up to help. And it's like, no, that ultimately like, okay, you stay here, the cops will get you, so we've got to get out of here. And so ultimately Mira has to sacrifice herself, which even she's like, she knew that a golden blood would have to die to save her son. She just didn't expect it to be her. And this way, because if the cops had gotten there, Ethan would have been shipped away, because basically saving his life would have meant killing someone else. And at least this way, Mira could be the one to save her son's life. And so it's a sad situation that even Reddington himself, is what I was about to start talking about earlier, is the fact he didn't initially give this to Liz to be like, oh yeah, I'm wanting things to kind of happen out like this. It's like he didn't plan it. Like, he had like maybe he had his ulterior motives, but it wasn't for this exactly. But I think, now that Liz knows who she is, being his daughter and everything, it made him look at things from a different perspective, because he's like, okay, like, because basically it's a situation of saying like a sinner can be a saint. And it's like, oh, is he talking about Mira or is he talking about himself? Because basically everything she did, all the bad stuff she did, it seems like she's a bad person, but everything she did was for her son's sake. And I think Liz kind of went along with it too, because it's like, if the situation was flipped and she had to do that for Agnes, like, she'd do it in art because she loves her daughter. And even Reddington himself is like, he says he hoped he'd be strong enough and have the courage to do what Mira did and sacrifice himself for Liz. He'd at least think that he definitely would want to, but whether he'd go through it or not, he said he'd hope he would. So, like I said, it's a powerful moment, because it's a situation of like, I'm sure it's kind of very reflective of their own relationship. And, now that they're very open about the father-daughter relationship, that kind of situation, it just, I don't know, it speaks to him. It makes you wonder, if he wasn't so open with Liz about this whole situation, if they had come across this case like a couple years back, would the situation be the same? I wonder, would Reddington still feel the same way? I feel like he would, just because Liz is his daughter, that it doesn't matter like she knows or not. He still would, he has still made this decision. Because Reddington has those moments where it's like, I'm not, like, he has the moments of being pure villainous, that everything, there's always like some catch with every situation that he's going to benefit in some situation. It's like, no, he didn't benefit from this. He just did something. He went about it the wrong way and everything, obviously forcing Nick's hand and everything. But it's a situation of like, he tried to do the right thing in his own way. Because if Mira, like maybe you know during the legal system and everything, maybe there could have been a situation, but I don't know if legally they would have let Mira sacrifice herself for the sake of saving her son Ethan's life like that. I don't know. Like I don't know if legally she would be able to do that. Her being a criminal and everything, that'd probably like put like some red tape in her way and stuff like that. So it's like a situation of being like doing a little wrong to do a little right, I guess, because it's like, you know, no matter what, because of the red tape of the whole situation, Ethan would have probably died because the whole situation was like preparing him to die, like getting him and his parents ready for all that. And it's just, I don't know. So, I mean, it has like a bittersweet ending to it. It's like, it's sad that it came down to this, but at the same time, it's like, you know, I'm sure for Mira, it's also like, this is my chance to help my son. So I might not be around there for him. Plus, she's a criminal in this case, so she would have been locked up too. But at least she, you know, it's something Harold kind of gets to. It's the fact that she would have been alive and everything. So the thing is, and it's something that Nick and obviously Harold kind of hammer home. The fact of the matter is, you're doing this. Like, you know, it's like before Nick wanted to help Liz because like, oh, he knows Liz and everything. Like, it's like, oh, you're trying to get away from Reddington and you want to do it for the sake of your child. Obviously, I'm gonna help you. But now it's like, no, you're here in front of me. You're actually even more like him. You're agreeing with this. It's like, you know what, Reddington, stay away from me. You, Liz, you can stay away from me too. Like, because, and it's something, like I said, coincide with what Harold said. Harold was like, you made this decision, like it was Reddington's idea, right? And she's like, yeah, but I agree. And he's like, that's the problem. Like, this isn't the proper way to handle this type of situation. And it's like, yeah, you help someone out, but still, like, first and foremost, you're an FBI agent. You not only lied to your colleagues, you also, like, went kind of outside the law and everything. So it's like, don't do that. This is your job and everything. And it's like, I get it, like, Reddington's your father and everything, but it's like, he's worried, you know? He's like, he's worried that relationship is going to change Liz. And that's something that Liz kind of was afraid of a little bit in season 4's finale, where she's like, there's a little bit of him in her, like, you know, Reddington inside her. And then she also said it like an episode or two ago, like she's kind of taking after him. And Reddington, he hasn't really commented on it, and I kind of don't know where he stands on it. Like, I always kind of, I've said in like the past, like, okay, I think like he would, you know, kind of prefer her to stay the way she is, not kind of take too much after him. But you know, that episode with the whole Grayson Blaze situation of like, hey, like she was starting to have fun. It's like, oh, we're actually robbing him. That's cool. Like, you know, so I don't know whether Reddington really likes that, or is he scared that he's actually going to change her because he wants her to stay the same. I don't know. But it definitely terrifies her, just like she realizes that she crossed the line. But the fact is that she recognizes it, that it does bother her, I guess, you know, in the long run means something. But it's something I brought up too, because I was wondering how she was going to deal with this, because like eventually she's going to start crossing that line more and more to the point of kind of becoming more and more like Reddington. And, you know, eventually at what point do you draw the line, and at what point would be too much for Liz, you know? And I think that's something she's going to have to heavily deal with this season, especially like obviously the future moment from like the beginning of the season is like, oh yeah, and Denbei and Reddington end up killing Tom, is how it's kind of pictured, which I'll kind of get about that into that a little bit soon enough. But it's just like, I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought there, so I do apologize. It's just, I'm just curious to see how she handles this whole situation going forward. And like getting right into it is the whole Tom situation of the episode. Him and that Peter dude and Nick conspiring with this whole situation. That had to be super awkward for Nick when Reddington originally came to him to be like, I need your help. And it's like, oh God, I'm technically backstabbing you with Tom right now. And it's like, oh, did you find out? Oh, you want me for something else? Oh God, you know, he was sweating bullets. So, it's kind of sad. Sadly, at the end of it all, it seems that Nick died. He was killed. And Liz at the same time is cutting back and forth. And Liz is like, I have this feeling we're never going to see Nick again. Like, he's a friend of ours. He's, you know, done us favors. And it's like, you know, it's kind of sad that it kind of push things to this point that he's like wanting to cut off all contact with him. And, you know, Tom's kind of justified to be like, no, you know, Nick's a big boy. He can take care of himself. He can make his own decisions. But it's like, oh yeah, we kind of dragged him into this whole Reddington situation. So she's feeling guilty, but it's been announced to her she's making Tom feel even more guilty because he's bringing Nick into this whole situation. Something that Reddington once buried like buried secret, like this secret that Reddington wants buried, and like Tom is mixing Nick in it, and it cost him his life. Now, whether that's directly Reddington, probably not. No, not probably. Most likely not. It's most likely like because it was something that Tom was worried about. He's like he didn't because he saw the look in Peter's eye. And it's like, oh, the fact of the matter is Peter was too greedy about the whole situation. So it's like he would have. He knew that this was some juicy information that he could probably sell to someone, so maybe he attracted the wrong people. They killed him, killed Nick, or that was Peter himself. I missed it. It didn't seem like it was Peter's body in there. Maybe it was, and I didn't catch it. So either that was Peter, but most likely I get the feeling like that was someone else. Maybe his body somewhere else, or whatever the case may be. I'm kind of thinking that might be that degree of things. Like it was. So, I mean, like, we would just have to wait and see whether like that was Peter or whether that was someone else. Because if it was someone else, it means like, yeah, he opened the floodgates by trying to sell it, or that was him doing it, him killing Nick himself to be like, okay, now I'm going to go take care of things myself and deal with this whole body situation. The thing I was bringing up earlier about the whole Tom thing, at the beginning, I talked about it. I was like, okay, I mean, you know, when I was talking about the season premiere, I was like, oh yeah, like most likely that's kind of like a red herring that actually looks like they're killing Tom, but actually they're killing someone that's right beside him or something. Maybe it's Peter or whoever it is that took this case that they were killing at the time. And it's just like the guy, cause he came after Tom because Tom is the only other person who would know about the body. Maybe Tom started chasing after him and he got the jump on Tom or something like that. I don't know. That's immediately when my brain goes on in that whole situation. So, like I said, once again, we'll just kind of have to wait. Kind of ending the episode on a little more of a lighthearted note is the whole angle of like Reddington, like two people come into his place and everything, and Reddington immediately thinks, oh, they were sent by someone. Like they weren't sent, were they? Like they were just legitimately just trying to rob the place, and you just happened to be there. And it turns out that was ultimately the case because like Reddington's like, okay, like, oh, so you were sent by the mailman. He's like, lo and behold, it turns out they were literally sent by a literal mailman. Interestingly, I love also that scene at the post office, and he's looking at a wanted poster of himself, and he's like, yeah. It's like, she's like, oh, have you? It's like, oh, there's something about. He made a comment about the picture, and the lady's like, oh yeah, I've seen it before. And he's like, where? And she turns to him like, in my dreams. And then she's like, I've always had a thing for the bad boys. I'm like, nice. I know it's been like 20 years, but Reddington doesn't look that much different. But that was just kind of a cute thing. But I love that ultimately it is like, no, it was kind of like almost a mistaken identity thing because basically Reddington was renting this place out. Side note, he was like, oh yeah, that, B&B place, do you know about it? It's like, and Liz is like, well, everyone knows about it except for you apparently. Is it just, it could legally say Airbnb because if they did, they'd have to pay? I don't think it works like that. I don't think so, but it's just kind of interesting. I mean, I guess it was just playing into the fact that these old men, doesn't really know all that's, I'm about to say hip, but I don't know if like Airbnb is like really like that hip of a thing. Like, oh yeah, all the cool kids are Airbnb, and nevertheless, I just thought that was kind of interesting. Like, I was wondering if there was some legal reason why they didn't say it, or whether it was just kind of like it's just playing into that fact. Nevertheless, they ended up robbing the place because they thought no one's going to be there because like they have like schedulings and stuff about like how like, oh yeah, who's going to be here, who's not going to be home for a while and stuff like that. So while the people are away, he has the scheduling, the dude Anthony, and so he gets his people to come and rob the place. And so Reddington's like, oh, it's such a good idea. And he's like, okay, we're going into business together. Anthony's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, I'm taking over your business and we're going to become partners and we're going to make a boatload of money. And it's like, rather than stealing from these people, why don't we kind of do our own little thing and make it so we rent this place out to criminals? I'm like, that's so interesting. It's literally, like he puts it, safe houses for criminals. It's like, oh yeah, if criminals want to stay at these houses we got arranged for them, it's like they got to pay the big bucks. I'm like, that's actually so damn genius, dude. That's I mean, that's why Reddington is the kind of the criminal mastermind that he is, because it's like he sees opportunities here. It's like this small chance, this small meeting is now he's going to turn it into a huge business venture slowly, like definitely bringing in the cash. like I said, it's slowly but surely he is building back up not only just his team, but allies too. It's just going to be interesting going forward to see like who else he joins to his ensemble and what they bring to the table and what he brings to the table in this grand old situation. And hopefully we find out answers to who the guy was that ended up killing Nick. I'm sure Liz and them are going to get the case. Now, whether they're going to get it next episode or not, we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But I'm very interested to see what goes down there, because now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, if Liz gets that case, it's definitely going to get a little awkward because Tom was working with Nick and he's probably going to have to cover his tracks and pretend like he didn't have anything to do with it. Probably the entire time he's going to be worried about whether Reddington, he'll probably have to fish around to see if Reddington knows anything or not. Like, did Reddington track him down? Did Reddington get the case or something like that? Do whatever he can to track down the case himself before, it spreads out there in the world and then Reddington gets a sniff of it. And, before Liz finds out the truth behind everything, because she finds out that he's lying, that he's lied all this time, and that, this is something that might potentially hurt Reddington, which he brought it up before, the reason why he brought Nick into it in the first place is like, if he tells it to Liz would have told Reddington just to question him directly. He could deny, lie, and make it disappear. That whole deal, because there's been plenty of things in the past where Reddington has made things disappear. There was one time there was like a note. I forgot. I think it was back in season 3. Maybe it was season 4. I want to say it was like season 3 that basically there's a guy that like buried a lot of like secrets, and Reddington like had his like uncovered and he burned it just so Liz wouldn't find out. So it's not like this would be the first time. So like I said, overall great episode. I'm very interested to see what goes on in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love light to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.